here to help you make more money, save more time, and help more people too. And today we are going to reset. Today we're going to be talking about the things that we as entrepreneurs need to stop doing. There's a lot of things we do, but we have to put a stop to some of them in order to grow and excel in others. So stick around. We got a lot to talk about today. This is a mindset show in this particular episode. Thanks for being here. Day 110 of the income stream. That's incredible. Thank you for your support. I'm here for you.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Flynn.
Thanks again for being here, everybody. I appreciate you. Let's welcome some of the Quaranteam in the house. We got Simon. What's up, Simon? Good to see you. Jamming. Good morning to you. Louis B. What's up? Can Do Math. Susan. We got Xenia and Vlada. Wendy. Elton. Samson. Francis. I think Scooby Life is in her car right now. Tondalea. Bernard. Chris. I appreciate y'all. Louis. Solcidio, thank you so much. This is going to be awesome because we have a lot of things to talk about. Now, there are some obvious things that we need to stop doing that I think we've talked about on the show before. So I want to get these two things out of the way before we get into the 5 major things today. Obviously, we have to stop listening to the trolls, right? We as entrepreneurs, we have a weird math where we put more weight to the negative comments than the positive comments that come in. And over time, this has been huge for me because I want to please everybody, much like I know many of you want to please everybody. But if you're doing things correctly, you can't please everybody. If you're putting your own style, if you're being very adamant about what you believe in, then you're going to create division. And that's really important to do in order to get people to follow you and to believe you so that you're not just playing average, so that you're not just playing in the middle ground, but you're playing big and people can come with you and follow you. But you're going to get trolls and negative comments. Now, there's negative comments like constructive criticism, which is okay and very welcoming, and you should absolutely welcome that. And pay attention to, especially if there's a lot of people saying the same kinds of things. But there's going to be trolls out there who are going to try to take you down. And we as entrepreneurs, we have a weird math where one negative comment outweighs 100 positive comments. So we need to stop paying attention to the trolls or putting so much weight to those particular comments. So that's number -2, I guess. -1 would be always trying to get it right. I saw a number of people mention this in the chat earlier, but the idea of trying to get everything perfect is not going to help you. We as entrepreneurs, we need to understand that imperfection, that failing, that making mistakes is absolutely a part of the process. And it's the thing that allows us to differentiate ourselves between those who also want to get started, but never move forward because they're either too afraid or they're too worried, or like me, maybe they grew up in a household where you'd come home with a 96% on a math test and your dad would go, well, what happened to the other 4%? And then you'd focus for 3 hours on the 4% that you didn't get right, thus conditioning yourself to think everything had to be perfect. And that was very hard for me to get over as well. And very quickly I understood that making mistakes, failing was a part of the process. So those are sort of 2 obvious ones that we know about in terms of what we need to stop doing, right? Things that we definitely need to stop doing: procrastinating and also listening to the trolls, right? Now, if you have family members that are trolls, and that's very common as well, especially family members who are also speaking up against you because they want to defend the things that they've done. It's more something about them versus you. It can be very difficult. What I do in those situations, because I've seen some people mention this in the chat already, is just, well, hey, let's not even talk about these things in front of those people, right? Let's just avoid that topic because nothing positive can happen, right? It takes a lot more effort and proof for you to prove yourself, right? And that's something I did early up front. I had my dad really telling me that, even though I was starting this entrepreneurship journey, to go back to school, to go back to architecture. I went to school for 5 years for architecture, got a great job afterwards. I could easily go back into that even after I get my master's degree, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to try that. I didn't mention it to him all the time. He knew that's what I was doing, but it just wasn't a topic that I wanted to bring up because I knew his side of it. But eventually he came around and now he's like one of my biggest fans, which is pretty cool. Typically, hurt people, right? People who are hurt will often feel better or feel like they're going to feel better if they're hurting others or that others deserve it too. And oftentimes when I have a troll come my way, I try to flip the script and go, well, I wonder what's happening in that person's life. I hope they're okay. And sometimes I even offer to help, and that amazingly turns people around sometimes. Other times they try to fight even harder, and then I go, okay, well, hey, you're in my home right now. Peace out. You're out. Okay, so now let's talk about these 5 big things, and I'm going to start with number 5 here. I'm going to count down from 5. We need to stop comparing ourselves to others. This is a big one. We need to stop comparing ourselves to others. Now, this is very difficult to do, especially in the online space, and especially if you are following people and subscribe to people who are very open about what they do. And if you follow the media, and the media doesn't help as well. Because we go, oh, well, here's where we're at, and here's where they're at. Something's wrong, something's missing, we're not as good as them, we're not as qualified, we're not as skilled, we're not as talented. And unfortunately, when we do this, it stunts our growth because we no longer feel energized because somebody else is so much further ahead, right? This is where Instagram, although I love Instagram, it's my favorite platform because I love to see all the positivity there. A lot of the stuff that I don't like about Facebook does not exist on Instagram. However, what we are seeing are people's highlight reels, right? We're seeing people's highlight reels. And I have to consciously, when I go into Instagram and I'm scrolling through people's feeds, people that I love, people that I follow, people that are mentors to me, people that inspire me, I have to remember that they are on their path and I am on my path. They are on their path and I'm on my path. I can get inspired by them. I can get educated by them. I can get motivated by them. But if I go, oh, look what they have and look what I don't have, if you logically think about that, it doesn't compute. They went through a completely different path, have had a completely different set of problems, and have, spent time to get there. And a lot of times we compare their 5-year journey to our 5-month journey, or we're comparing somebody's 10-year results to our 10-week results. And that's hard. Because and of course there's the other part about this is there's anomalies, right? Like there's gonna be those people who get featured in the media because they literally just started brand new and they're surpassing our numbers and they've done it in a quarter of the time, and that doesn't feel good either. And again, they've had different circumstances, they've had different results, and to directly compare our results with their results, thinking that everything else might be the same is ludicrous, right? That's absolutely ludicrous. What we can do is potentially compare the effort, the work, the strategies with our effort, our work, our strategies, with the time that they've had available, with the time that we've had available. Sometimes we just don't have the time to do those same things. A very clear example of this is I remember I took the Switch Pod, and Caleb and I, we were on a sort of media tour in New York when it was launching on the Kickstarter campaign. This was February 2019. And we went to Vaynerchuk, we went to VaynerMedia, Gary Vaynerchuk's office. And unfortunately, he wasn't there, but we got to sit in his office. We got to hang out with his crew. And I noticed, and this was what was told to us, there were like 20 desks outside his main office with the glass windows in the corner. Beautiful view of the skyline. And those 20 people were hired specifically to manage all of Gary Vaynerchuk's social media accounts. Literally, the illustrations, the quotes, the texts, not the interaction. Gary still does that himself, but all the creation on all the different platforms by 20 different people. And it just struck me because I heard a lot of people go, oh, I'm taking the Gary Vaynerchuk approach. I'm just hustling. I'm going all in, and I'm going to try to create as much content as possible. And I'm like, but you're not Gary, and you don't have 20 people helping you do this. And he's been very open about that. He's not like he tries to keep it secret or pretend. But I think people see what comes out on the other end of his, sorry, choose my words wisely. What has come out on the other end of his platforms, and forget that, well, he might have a team and a group of people who are literally there, and that's their job, right? And we, as especially bootstrapped solopreneurs, some of us, we can't do that. And so we cannot compare people like Gary Vaynerchuk to what we do. We can get inspired again, and we can pick and choose the lanes that we want to go down. And this is where, when it comes to learning, right, we want to make sure that we're learning about only the things that we need to focus on next. And it's about sort of putting away all those other things that we think we need to learn or that other people are doing, and just need to prioritize. We need to prioritize. We need to think about what we need to do. I'd highly recommend checking out a book called The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Yes, the same Keller as Keller Williams Realty. Amazing book. Definitely describes the consequences of focusing on too many things at once. And I think there's a benefit to us by not being Gary Vaynerchuk. We have the ability to provide more love, time, care, and effort into the relationships that we have. And Gary cannot possibly do that with a larger percentage of his audience. We can. You can, especially if you're just starting out. That's your advantage. So let's stop comparing ourselves to others directly. Here's what we need to compare, and I'm just going to share this with you right now. We need to compare ourselves to a younger version of ourselves, to ourselves yesterday. There's another book that comes to mind related to this called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And Atomic Habits by James Clear is a book that talks about incremental growth, 1% better every day. And when you do the math there, that 1% better every day skyrockets. This is the curve we don't want to flatten. This is growth, 1% little increments every day. You can't improve if you don't measure and you don't consider how you were before, right? So how are you getting better every day? That's the question. So I want you in the chat, if you're live with me right now, tell me one thing, and I'm going to give you a shout out here. Tell me one thing that you're doing regularly to get better every day. And again, highly recommend Atomic Habits, New York Times bestseller, good friend of mine, James Clear. So proud of him and what he's done. But how are you incrementally getting better each day too? What are some of the things that you're doing? I want to get inspired by you. And again, we're not here to compare each other. We're here to compare ourselves to our younger self too. The One Thing was a book that I mentioned, and also Atomic Habits. Chris here saying, hey, get wrecked, younger me. Get wrecked. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do to compare yourself to your younger self, right? You can compare yourself to the things that you didn't do that you can start doing. You can also compare yourself to the things that you used to do that you are now going to stop doing. An exercise that my team and I do every time we have our quarterly meeting and we're focused on moving forward into the future, we go, stop, start, continue. Stop, start, continue. What are we going to start doing that we didn't do? What are we going to stop doing that we were doing that isn't working right now? And what are we going to continue to do and improve and get better at? Setting smart goals. I love it. The achievable, tangible, measurable results. I love that. I read books and articles, and hopefully, Boris, you are taking action on that, which is great. Take feedback with context from others. That's awesome, Zuri. I love that. What's up, Mubarak? Great to see you here. Going forward, not procrastinating via fear. I love that, and that's something that we've talked about already. I'm trying miracle morning exercises, savers. I love that. Silence, affirmation, visualizations, exercise, reading and scribing or journaling. That's awesome. I've slowly eliminated gaming and dedicated that time to read books and record more videos for my YouTube channel to grow. That's awesome, Be the Story. Let's talk about this really quick. I love that you are comparing yourself to your younger self, seeing that you've perhaps spent a little bit more time gaming than you should and not as much time creating and focusing on efforts moving forward. That being said, I still think it's important to, and this is a very common thing in entrepreneurship as well, we go, okay, here's what we need to do. Boom, all in. Like, people do this when they go to the gym too. They're like, okay, I'm going to start working out 7 days a week, 2 hours a day, let's go. And what happens is you burn out, right? If gaming is an important thing to you, don't cut it out entirely. Have it become something that can motivate you as a reward for the things that you get done, if that makes sense. Try to meditate every morning, says Steve. That's awesome. Yoga, says the Roamer. Not judging yourself. That's great, Zurir. Every day, in every way, a little better. Try new things. Absolutely. Hi, Rex. I got new dumbbell set, and I'm now working out every morning at 7 a.m. every single morning for the first time ever. Bruh. Dude, that's awesome, Rex. Keep up the great work. Dude, my older self is a different universe, right? Totally. Writing every day, says Johnny. That's great. I like this, y'all. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to be asking you to share more as we go along, but let's move on to number 4. We started with number 5, which was comparing yourself to others directly. But we need to focus ourselves on comparing to our younger self. That's what we need to do. All right. Number 4, counting down from 5. Number 4, we need to stop guessing as much as possible. There's going to be moments in your life as an entrepreneur where you're still going to feel like it's guessing, and oftentimes it often feels like gambling, right? With the time and money that you spend up front on building and creating and then putting it out there in the world and hoping and praying and believing that people will purchase and work with you and transact with you. But we can do a lot of things to minimize that feeling of guessing, of gambling, and increase the feeling of confidence in what it is that we're putting time and effort into. If you haven't yet read my book, Will It Fly? I highly recommend you check it out. If you go to smartpassiveincome.com/toolkit, you can actually get it for free right now. smartpassiveincome.com/toolkit. Oh, this is actually reminding me of something. I'm going to go here right now so you can find it. Smartpassiveincome.com/toolkit will take you here. These are free resources from myself and my team to help you during this crisis. One of those things, if you scroll down, is a book called Will It Fly? This book, and in conjunction with a course that we're offering for free right now as well, it's normally $249. We're offering it for free. It's called Smart From Scratch. Anybody take Smart From Scratch, please leave a quick endorsement in the chat because I know it has helped you. We're offering it for free right now. We've given away over 3.2 or $3.3 million worth of just that one course alone during this time, which is great. These courses or that book will help you validate your ideas up front in different kinds of ways. What do I mean by that exactly? That means having conversations, doing the proper market research to understand that this thing that you're choosing to focus on, this market that you want to dive into, and these problems that you want to solve with these solutions that you have are indeed worth moving forward and into. Too often, thank you, I Do Web Work, for the super chat today. I appreciate you. Crossed 6K miles walk since, 6,000 miles. You're doing that to improve yourself every day. I love that. So, we can improve our chances of succeeding by spending a little bit more time up front doing research to get greenlit after green light after green light, right? What I mean is taking little incremental steps in collecting validation points so that when we get to that point where we launch that podcast, so that when we get to the point where we launch that course, we don't go, oh my gosh, I launched and then no sales, what happened, right? Although there is a scenario where that can still happen, but we can go, hey, I know this is helpful. I'm going to put it out there with all the research that I've done and the conversations that I've had and the people that I've spoken to who have literally already went through this process or have voted with their dollars up front or have voted with their email list joining up front. This is now something that we are going to be a little bit more confident in launching or promoting or putting out there in the world, right? There's always going to be feelings of doubt. That's just human nature, right? When you get into a space that's new, if you're taking the right actions, if you're taking those bold actions that we need to take, right? That's what it takes, bold actions outside of your comfort zone. You're always going to have that sense of fear. That's not going to go away, right? But we can, two things. We can, number one, change that fear into excitement about the possibility of this thing working. But number two, use that energy to go, okay, well, how can I be a little bit more confident in what I'm about to promote? So the methods that I teach in Smart From Scratch, this course here, again, smartpassiveincome.com/toolkit can help you. And then number two, this book here, Will It Fly? And then number two, these conversations to get to the point that allow you to remove the guesswork. And I'm talking about big things right here so far, but this can be used for small things too. What about the next blog post that you're going to write or the next podcast episode or the guest that you want to have come on your podcast? There are mechanisms and ways, especially with the connection that we have to our audience or even finding conversations that are happening online already. Even without you getting involved in those conversations, you can see and understand whether or not this thing that you're about to do or launch or create or put out there in the world as a creator is actually going to hit home, right? Now, sometimes you're just not going to know. Sometimes it is a guess. But a lot of these efforts and things that we can do up front is almost like, if you're going to chop down a tree, this is sharpening the axe to make sure that, I don't even know what the quote is. Is it an Abraham Lincoln quote? Is it a George Washington quote? I'm not sure. By the way, I got Hamilton on my mind. So good. I watched it like for the second time in 3 days yesterday. So good. It's like sharpening that axe for hours ahead of time so that you only have to spend an hour cutting down the tree, right? Or even less time, right? A lot of us, we do work like this. We grab an axe. We don't check to see how sharp it is. We just hit that tree, trying and hoping that it comes down. And it may come down, but it's going to feel like it's going to require more force. But you might just need a little bit more time to sharpen that axe first, if that makes sense. Thank you for the endorsement. Yoga Love, I appreciate you. I've started your online course, Pat, and it really helps with gaining clarity on what to do, especially for a business newbie like me. Thank you for this opportunity. The big thing here is that when you approach a launch, for example, like of a course or a coaching program, and you're guessing, a lot of times, without even knowing it, subconsciously, that guessing or that sort of scared quality comes out in your copy, in your emails, in all those kinds of things, right? And what happens is if a person on the other end reading this or watching your videos for your sales pages can see that you're not confident or totally in agreement that this is the thing that they need to get access to, then how in the world are they going to feel confident? If you are not confident, how are they going to feel confident? Thank you so much for the super chat, David. I appreciate you. You're amazing. And by the way, as a reminder, all the super chats this month, July 2020, are going to go to yemenfoundation.org and help out those who are in dire need over there, who are suffering from multiple things at the same time, including the virus that's happening in the world and are just kind of flying under the radar. I want to bring attention to Yemen this month. So that's great. So guessing, wondering, we need to test, we need to validate up front. And yes, you still might get to a point where you do all the testing, you do all the validation, you launch, and you can still have crickets. It could still not work out as well. And that's very deflating, definitely and obviously. However, now that you've done the research, you know that certain things were a yes, a green light, and then there was a point at which something stopped working. Now you can actually use this opportunity to focus in on, well, what didn't work? And if you've done the process of Will It Fly and Smart from Scratch, you'll have access to people who can actually guide you and help you, your own target audience who can help you go, okay, yes, I was all in for it up until this point, and then it becomes a question of, well, let's do follow-up research, right? Like, let's say, for example, you launch, you get crickets, but then you ask your audience who said they wanted this thing, who said and you validated that they needed this thing. In fact, they've even gone to webinars where you've talked about this thing. They've even voted with, their email list, joining your email list to get access to tools related to this thing. And now you created the product, like the product. You were confident and it didn't work. Well, there's a disconnect there somewhere. And oftentimes the feedback that you get is, oh, it's too expensive. But here's the secret. When somebody says something is too expensive, essentially that is just code word for, I did not understand the value that you were offering for that price. It did not compute for me as a potential buyer. Often what that means is it's a messaging problem or a positioning problem. You didn't hone in on the right words to say that can convince a person that this thing that you're creating is worth their time and money. So the words that we choose are very important as well. This is why having conversations and doing surveys and things like that up front can help us better understand and get to the point where we're at least more confident in the work that we're doing to move forward. Cool? Cool. Actually, Scooby Life is, why do crickets get such a bad rap? They're actually very loud and very annoying, in fact. Yeah, this is true. Never thought about that. Good stuff. Okay, so that's number 4. So number 5 was comparing yourself to others. We need to compare ourselves to our younger self and improve incrementally over time. Number 4 is guessing, right? Removing as much guesswork as possible. Moving forward with confidence because we've done some work up front to know, okay, that is indeed the path we need to go down, or at least I have a better chance of going that way. And removing that gambling feeling when it comes to entrepreneurship and getting into the more confident investment feeling, investment of time, investment of money. Number 3. We need to stop reacting and start being more proactive. Stop reacting. And what do I mean by this? What I mean by this and where I want to focus is when it comes to creation. Now, there's a lot of examples of where we as entrepreneurs need to stop reacting and start being proactive, right? We need to stop, for example, reacting to the fact that everybody now is finally talking about Black Lives Matter. And now we have to go, okay, well, yeah, we should have focused on that earlier. Now let's be diverse now let's be inclusive. Now let's bring awareness to this stuff, right? That's being very reactive. And it's great that we're all reacting to this right now, but how can we now be proactive? How can we lead by example? How could we do this in other realms that need to be spoken about and brought to light now before people start calling people out on it, right? How do we be proactive, whether as opposed to reactive? When it comes to the mistakes that you make, and in different industries, and like everybody, we're all going to make mistakes. And especially if you're a more public figure, mistakes can be very detrimental to your reputation and the work that you do. So being proactive about coming out and being upfront about certain mistakes that you've made and being first to call that out is much better than being reactive to everybody else mentioning that and saying that stuff first, right? So even before we get to the point where we need to respond, how do we focus and be proactive and actually step forward into these things? This is a big difference between the leaders and followers out there in the world. Now, on a more entrepreneurial CEO note, I will say that for the first 4 or 5 years of my business career, I was a very reactive entrepreneur. Oh, here's what the market's doing and saying, let me do that now. Here's a strategy that everybody's using right now. Let me do that now. I need to create a blog post for next week's blog and the content calendar. Let me create that now. Hey, I just finished this week's podcast episode. I need to go create next week's podcast episode too. Now let's go do that. That's reactive. I'm reacting to the situations that I'm in right now versus planning ahead and being proactive. And it was a very clear moment in time back in 2015 when I had a chat with Ramit Sethi, who is a dear friend of mine and somebody who inspires me dearly. He runs a website at iwillteachyoutoberich.com. Ramit Sethi and I had a conversation, and he eventually coached me to the position where I understood that I was being a very reactive entrepreneur, not a proactive. I was being a scrappy, put it together, Frankenstein-like entrepreneur, right? Just kind of taking what I have access to, putting pieces together. And that was fine. In fact, that's what we have to do up front, especially when you don't have a team or don't have resources. But even if you don't have a team and don't have resources, there are certain things that you can do to play in the more CEO role of your business. And there's a couple things that I want to talk about related to this. Number one, the idea that you only create content when you need to, or think about the content that's coming up next, right? And so what I eventually had to find out was, well, planning becomes a big part and purpose within entrepreneurship in terms of growth and in terms of stability and in terms of, staying mentally stable. Sometimes it's so much better to spend more time up front planning the things that are coming next. So I had to make a mindset shift as scrappy entrepreneur to go planner, CEO, right? So the difference was me coming up with a new blog post topic every single week to fulfill that schedule, to now being 3 months ahead of schedule and knowing who I'm going to have conversations with, having these things already recorded, queued up and scheduled so that stuff's taken care of out of my brain, and how these podcast episodes, how this blog post, how these lives, how the YouTube videos actually play a role in my much larger business versus just, well, this is a topic that I want to talk about today. This is something, well, especially on the podcast, that can inject itself into a much larger campaign about a certain thing, right? So, for example, when I come out with a launch for a new product, you'll see on the podcast weeks before that, I choose a particular theme about that topic of that course to talk about, to unlock the objections that people have, to really define what this thing is, to show people what's possible related to this thing. And now, because I'm planning ahead, I can play the role of CEO and see how this content can inject itself into the launches of the things that I have coming out. So now it's not just even a one-off thing, it's a smaller part in a larger whole. This relates to the next tip, and I'll dive more into that later, but really part of the idea of being CEO and being proactive in your business is understanding what it is that you should hand off to other people, or the things that you can invest back into your business so that certain things can get off your plate, right? There might be certain tools that you can get access to that you can invest in to help get yourself some time back, right? And this is what you ultimately get back when you are proactive. Yes, you're investing time up front to plan or do these certain things, or investing money into tools and or resources to hire, but ultimately you're getting time back. And now by being proactive, you can be more proactive with things that you didn't have the ability to focus on before too. This is how I've structured one of my courses. For example, my course Amped Up Podcasting, which is my 201 level podcasting course. A stands for automate, M stands for market, P stands for profit. These are things, and the strategies that I teach in that course are only things that you can do once you have a podcast. You can't do these things if you're just starting out. So this is why it's a 201 course. But the first section, that first module of the course is automate, and to hand off and to delegate and be the CEO of your podcast so that you can get time back to now put into marketing, to now turning into a business, right? Because we all want to do that. But if we don't have that time, if we don't delegate, if we don't take that approach of we are the CEO or the owner of this company or the director in our business, if we're just sort of playing role of on the front lines and not thinking about it from the general's point of view, the commander's point of view, then it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a drag. It's going to be a grind. And it's going to have to be like that in the beginning. But how might we get out of that sooner? We need to start being proactive, right? And the other thing about this, before I move on to the final two things that we're going to talk about today, hopefully, by the way, let me know in the chat if this is helpful. I love these kinds of discussions. They're often more important than the strategies, although, of course, we do talk about strategies here and tactics and tools and things like that. But none of that stuff matters if this stuff up here doesn't matter. And so I hope that you're getting value. Let me know in the chat. Hook me up with a thumbs up. We're almost at 100 thumbs up, which is really great. I appreciate you for that. But I just want to make sure and ensure that you're getting some good value out of here. So I appreciate you. The final thing about being proactive is the idea of you stepping forward and planting your flag on the ground, in the ground, about whatever it is that you believe in. This is being proactive. This is you being a leader and saying, hey, y'all, this is what I believe in. This is what I think should happen. And here is the effort that I'm doing to make it happen. We as entrepreneurs, we like to play it safe. You know, as much as we are risky, we are also, a lot of us, not risky. However, too many entrepreneurs try to play the middle field. We try to please everybody. We try to take both sides. We do that because it's very uncomfortable sometimes to take one side. It's very uncomfortable to take a stance that might be different than other people who might even be our friends, who might even be our mentors. We need to step forward and yes, take those bold actions, but have some bold beliefs as well. This is what allows you to, even though it's going to upset some people perhaps, or invite some trolls, this is what gets people to go, whoa, that's what that person believes in. And that's what they stand for. Now that brand is more clear. Now it's easier to talk about that person. Now it's easier to share. Now it's more likely to have bigger headlines as a result of that effort versus just following the crowd, blending in, saying yes to everything that everybody's doing the same things everybody else is doing. What do you stand for? What is it? What is something that you are known for in particular? And the other part about this is I remember when I don't remember when it was, but I remember in my head thinking about, well, I don't believe that I have that. And this was even 5-6 years after I started my business and had this large audience already. I started to doubt whether or not I was quote unquote qualified to say something and have it be like the thing I believe in, right? Who am I to go, I believe everybody should have a podcast. Maybe I don't. But you like if you play middle ground, well, maybe you should start a podcast, but maybe a podcast isn't right for you, for example. Well, then guess what? You're not somebody that a person can follow and believe in because people that's not worth talking about. Oh yeah, Pat, he helps people podcast, but I mean, I don't know if he believes everybody should do it or not. Versus, y'all, every single person should have a podcast. I truly believe that. And I need to be even more adamant about that. I highly believe that. And it's not just because I have a course that teaches, whether you learn from me or anybody else, the podcast thing is the number one best way to scale intimacy. It's the best way to scale relationship building. Although there's less people right now who can find your podcast versus a YouTube video, guess what? It's coming. We need to get on this train now. That's a much stronger message. That's a message that can be believed and can be followed versus, hey guys, this podcasting thing, it's growing, it's huge, but you might prefer a video channel, or maybe you prefer blogging instead. Whatever it is you want to do, you do it. How is that helping people? If you stand for nothing, Burr, what will you fall for? Deb, yo, love you for that. Meet me outside. Meet me outside. One, two, three, four, five, six. Man, the songs are so good, man. The songs are so good. Angelica's songs are the best. Rewind. Sorry. Anyway, that's the biggest thing about being proactive. What do you stand for? How can people follow you if you don't stand for anything, right? I really want you to question that. It's going to take some internalization and some thinking and self-conversation to go, well, what do I stand for? What do I believe in? What can people follow me for, right? Good stuff. Hope Boykin Dance says, this is a great talk today, Pat. I'm here for you. Thank you so much. Learning podcasting from Pat is the best way to go. Thank you. Pat Flynn, you have me all fired up, bro, says Just Samson. I appreciate you. It took 110 days straight for you to get fired up. No, I'm just kidding. By the way, for those of you, I think Samson is the only one who's gone to every single live stream, 110 live streams in a row. Thank you. How are we 10 days past our 100th episode already? That's just incredible to me. Just anyway, thank you so much for being here. Big bro for all of you. By the way, I'm working on some emotes and stuff. I know a lot of you support the channel. A lot of you offer super chats. I'm looking at creating a new mechanism to support the channel and offer help for those in need, which will unlock certain things that you can do in the chat that you can't do right now. More on that later, but that should be fun. And yes, King George, the best. Awesome. Okay. You'll be back. This I know. Okay, so number 2. We should just have a live stream about Hamilton. All right, number 2. And then number 1. This is something we need to stop doing. We need to stop doing all the work ourselves. We need to stop doing all the work ourselves. When you begin, you should do all the work yourself. You're going to play all the hats. You're going to wear all the hats, play all the roles. And I think that's important to do. And this is something that's very common, for example, in my podcasting course. I have a lot of people who go, Pat, like, I want to start a podcast. I don't want to do it all myself. Can I hire out, like, right away? And I like that. I appreciate that. But I often recommend at least get the first 3 episodes done yourself. Like, do it yourself, edit it yourself, do all the things so that you know how it's done and that you can have your own style and that you can appreciate the art of it, and then you hand it off. This is good because if you hire out and that person were to go away or that company or agency goes away, well, you can at least continue that schedule. I've seen people who have hired, like, they go, okay, Pat, I want to start a podcast. I'm going to invest $10,000 in hiring the best team and getting all the best equipment, all this stuff. They do this, and then, however many episodes in, their team leaves or something happens, and they just go, well, now what do? I don't know what to do. At least you can pick it up yourself if you've done it yourself first. It also gives you a better appreciation for the work that you do hire. But eventually you want to get to the point. It took me 6.5 years to do this, y'all, to finally trust somebody else to do the work for me. Now, I will say that, no, that's not true. It took me 6 years to get to that point for my own stuff, like with smart passive income stuff. In fact, the specific thing I'm talking about is hiring people to number 1, manage my email. But number 2, also edit my podcast. It took me years to get to the point where I was comfortable doing that. But I did hire somebody early on to voice over a book that I wrote for the architecture space. So at my website, greenexamacademy.com, I had an ebook that was selling and doing pretty well. And I hired somebody to create a voice-over version of the book or an audio version of the book that I then sold in conjunction with the study guide. And that worked really well too. I remember trying to record that thing myself, and it was terrible. And I was always like, well, why would I invest money in something that I could probably do myself? And although I did record it and it turned into an MP3 file, it was terrible. The audio quality wasn't good, but plus it was just hard, and it was not what I was good at. That was the first time I ever recorded my own voice, and it was terrible. But this person who I could potentially hire, it was actually through a website called elance.com, which is now upwork.com. In fact, there were many people who bid to get access to this project. I hired a person at $1,200, which was 1.5 times more than the rent I was paying at the time. And I was like, this is ridiculous. How in the world could I be comfortable paying somebody more than I pay in a month's rent to have this done for me? But again, I also knew that this was an investment. I couldn't do this stuff as well as this person. This person was going to do it faster than me. And it was, again, an investment back into my business. And this thing eventually made up for the cost of the effort to create it within the first 2 days after I started selling it, right? So anyway, hiring out's very key. Now, where might we start hiring out? This is where I'd recommend a book called Virtual Freedom, which is run and actually created by my friend Chris Ducker, best friend of mine. This book is life-changing, in fact. Virtual Freedom. This will help guide you into what it is in your business, no matter what your business is, what you should be handing off. And the things that you should be handing off are one of 3 things. The things that you know you need to do in your business, but you hate doing, right? You know how to do them, but you absolutely hate doing it. These are the things that are sort of repetitive over time. This is where you can hire, for example, an executive assistant who you could train and teach to do these things over and over and over again for you, thus getting time back. And there's also scales of economy here. If you hire, for example, a Filipino VA, I hired a Filipino VA for a while. They do their work. They do it really well. They're very loyal. They speak great English. I'm half Filipino myself. In fact, my mom's Filipino. I mean, I was paying $600 a month for somebody 40 hours a week. I even tried to offer this person more money, and they said no, because when you have more money in the Philippines, you are a target. And so it was just really interesting. I was able to support an entire family with $600 a month for 40 hours a week. I was getting so much stuff done. And this was back in the niche site dual days where I was creating websites and doing these kinds of repetitive things, but that eventually ended and I started to focus on other things. Anyway, that's number one. The things that you know that you should and have to be done in your business, but you just hate doing them. Number two, the things that you just don't have the ability to do yet, but eventually, or you need to do them, but you just don't have the capacity to do them. Hiring out for that makes sense as well too, right? Like for me, my first hires in that regard was bookkeeping and taxes and those kinds of things. I guess technically I could figure out how to do those things, but I just didn't want to, right? And then number three, and this is the hardest thing to then hand off, which is how do we, or it's the things that you're good at, that you know you need to do, and you're great at it, but you shouldn't do as CEO of your business, right? This is where you get a lot of that time back, right? Because you can now hand off that work or hire a team or invest in a product that will do some of that stuff for you to get time back to then focus on the you things, the things that only you can do that literally nobody else could do in your place, right? So Virtual Freedom by Chris Ducker, grab it on Kindle or wherever, and it's an amazing read. And it really, if you are looking forward to getting more time back and investing back in your business to get more time back so that you can focus on the things that you want to focus on. Not everybody's there right now, but I would encourage you to do it sooner than later. I wish, like, there's two things I wish I did differently when I started my business. Number one, I wish I started my email list sooner. But number two, I also wish that I hired out sooner, for sure. Big thank you to the 239 people watching live right now. Thank you so much. If you are in the chat, hook me up with a thumbs up if you're enjoying this, and let me know if let me know what's the one thing that you need to know, or let me know the one thing that you need to know, or that you know that you need to hand off, that you are likely doing, or it's repetitive, or you absolutely hate doing it, but you know it's necessary in the business that you have right now. Let me know in the chat. I will give you a shout out here. Tim Jacobs says, this is working in your strength zone and allowing others to do the same. Creating efficiencies, opportunities, building you and others, winning all the way around. I highly agree, Tim. Thank you so much. You said it way better than me. This allows you to focus in your zone of genius and allows others to focus on their zone of genius. A big struggle for me was handing off my podcasting work to others, right? Because I loved my podcast was my baby, y'all, right? That's what really put me on the map. And to hand that off to somebody else to edit it, to publish it, felt very wrong to me. But it wasn't until I experimented with that in baby steps, and that's how you can take this in baby steps. I'm not saying you have to hire a full-time team right now. You can hire for a specific task that you repeat over and over again, which is what I did. I hired somebody to edit my podcast for me. In fact, this was my other podcast, Ask Pat, because I was still so worried about people touching SPI, Smart Passive Income. But when I saw what happened there and I was getting this time back, like literally saving 4 to 5 hours a week, I was just obsessed. Now I have this full-time team, 6 employees, literally. Now I can support them and they support me. We're all in it together for you. And we've just recently put something together called SPI Pro. If you haven't yet submitted your application for SPI Pro, if you have a business and you got the itch to connect with other people and network and also have guidance and run through challenges every month and also get access to me and my team and other players in the industry, come check out SPI Pro. smartpassiveincome.com/pro is where I recommend you go so that you know how to move forward. Faux show. This is not working like I thought it was going to. Anyway, smartpassiveincome.com/pro. Applications, the application process is going to end very soon, and then we're going to be welcoming in the first 500 founding members to this community, which will be really great. I'm so excited that many of you are going to be a part of that, which is fantastic. Let's see. Quincy says, I need to hand off social media. I do not enjoy it. This is a very big thing that a lot of people do not enjoy. It's just not their cup of tea. One thing that you can help yourself with, Quincy, if you haven't done so already, is you can make time in your calendar, like block off time, 30 minutes, for example, each day. Just that's your social media time. And then you don't have to worry about it any other time, right? You're available, you're focused, you're having conversations within that certain time period, you're blocking it out, and that can give you a lot of headspace to do the other things that you need to do, but you're still showing up, you're still posting, you're still being consistent. It's just within that time period during the day. That's how I manage my social media accounts, and that's providing so much more room to do other things because it's within a finite period of time during the day. So I am very focused. I'm very fast during that time. I'm using mechanisms like video and audio on Instagram and on Facebook and Twitter to manage those processes so that I can get more done in a short period of time. And then it's out of my brain for the rest of the day. And that's been really cool. All right. And I do already pay photographer. I suck at product photography. That's great to know. And like I'm literally like that's great to know so that you can hire out so that somebody else can do that for you, right? Bro, when can I join SPI Pro? July 15th is when we'll be sending out acceptance letters. Video editing takes a while, but I want to learn how to do it myself and to get it where I want before I hand it off. What I'd like to hand off, designing my website. Don't mind doing it, but don't think that's my strength zone. Very well said, Tim. I need an editor for my video. I need to monetize first. There are ways to have people edit your videos in exchange for example, your knowledge or access to you, Elaine. There might be ways to have this service done for you by you offering some help to others, right? There are some interesting partnerships and ways that can happen. So you don't necessarily have to have money. You might have some talent or knowledge or skills that you can share in exchange for this thing. So we could talk more about hiring and handing things off later, but that's a big one, right? We need to stop thinking that we always need to do everything ourselves. This is likely how we start, and that's actually what I recommend. However, as soon as you feel that you are starting to struggle and that you're not having the time that you might need to do these other things that you know you need to do, that's a good sign that you might need to start hiring people or at least finding people to support you with these other realms. And maybe it's a partnership. Maybe it's actually hiring a person. Maybe it's just a contractor. Maybe it's just a VA. But that's one thing I wish I had done sooner for sure. Have to head out early today, says Aaron. So much value in this video. Thanks, Pat Flynn and Quaranteam. Thank you. If, by the way, you are not subscribed to the show yet and this channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button below. Hit that bell notification icon too. I took a little bit of a hiatus, about a month and a half, 2 months hiatus from my regular YouTube videos. Starting mid-July, that's going to come back. There was a lot of focus for myself and the team on SPI Pro, which again is coming out very soon. And I've been wanting to keep up these daily live streams. We're 110 days in now. Regular videos are going to be coming out again soon that are more produced and more about specific topics, and that's coming soon. But again, either way, whatever videos you like, hit subscribe. Thank you so much. We are already over 250,000 subscribers here on YouTube, which is insane, and I'm looking to beef that up, and I appreciate you for your support. Thank you so much. Okay, so let's focus on the last thing. Let's see if I can remember the order of operations here. We start with number 5. Number 5 was comparing yourself to others. We need to stop doing that. We need to compare ourselves to our younger self. 1% incremental improvement every single day. That's what we need to do. How are you better than yourself last week? How are you better than yourself last month? How are you better right now than you were last year, right? That's number 5. Number 4 was guessing. We need to stop guessing. We need to stop just putting things out there, hoping and praying. If you build it, they will come. No, that's not the case, sorry. If you build it, they will come. No, if you build what they need, you have a more likely chance of actually succeeding, right? That's the idea. That's the idea. So we need to stop guessing. Number 3, we need to stop being reactive and start being proactive with things that you believe in, with the stance that you take in the industry that you're in, with the effort in planning, with your approach as CEO of your company. We need to stop being reactive with your approach to content creation. Let's plan ahead, right? We need to stop being reactive and start being more proactive. Number 2, stop trying to do everything yourself. You are great at certain things and not so great at other things. And over time, eventually, you're going to want to, in order to grow, in order to expand, and in order to stay sane as an entrepreneur, we can start to hand things off or find tools or people to help us and support us with the things that we know need to get done in our business that we shouldn't be doing or don't want to do or even are great at doing but shouldn't do as CEO of our own company. And then number 1. Number 1. This is a big one. We need to stop undervaluing ourselves, just in general. Especially when it comes to the idea of selling anything, whether it's a coaching program or a course. Most people who are doing this for the first time want to price their solutions, your work, your effort, lower because you don't think you're qualified to charge that much. Because you're brand new to the space, because other people have done this for far longer than you have. But there's going to be people out there who will want to learn from you and only you. They're looking for somebody like you, even though there's other people that talk about the same thing. And there's this idea of perceived value. If you go into a furniture store and there's this gorgeous antique furniture, they're all worth thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of furniture, right? These pieces are incredible. And then you see this exquisite looking chair and it's beautiful, but it's only worth $10. What do you think about that chair? Do you go, oh, that's a great deal, I should pick it up? Or do you go, it must be haunted, or there must be something broken, or maybe it smells like dog poop. I don't know, right? Maybe a skunk had its way with it. Something's wrong because the price is so cheap. And I promise you, if you continue to price yourself on the cheap end of things, you're offering the perception that your stuff is cheap. Now, there are many cases, obviously, where we can offer things for much cheaper, and it makes sense to do that. There's this idea of what's called a tripwire, although I don't like that term because tripwires explode things. But a tripwire meaning, hey, here's a lower price item that now then gets people confident in the higher price items that I have to offer. That's okay. But when you price your premium stuff lower because you're worried about what people think about you or the value that you have to share, well, guess what kind of message you're sending? That your stuff is probably not worth it. I'm not saying you need to charge $100,000 for your course either. There's a line there, right? Pricing is definitely something that is a topic of interest to those of us who are in entrepreneurship for sure. But I remember multiple occasions where I've spoken to people in person and in group settings, like mastermind settings, with 25 people in the room. Most of them coaches or have courses, completely underpricing themselves. In fact, one of those moments was in a workshop day that myself and my buddy Chris Ducker, who I mentioned earlier, that we held for people. And all the entrepreneurs in the room were completely underpricing themselves. In fact, we had this theme of the day called Double It. And what was really interesting is that many of those people ended up doubling their price for coaching, doubling their price for their course because they were completely underpricing themselves. And guess what? They ended up selling more of their stuff and or having a much higher quality student come in as well. And when you have a much higher quality student come in, you get better results. You feel more confident in the things that you have to share. And those are better testimonials that come in on the other end too. The hard thing about this is when you start pricing things higher, and again, you're not pricing it higher just to price it higher. And you're not pricing things higher because you just are wanting to make more money. You're pricing it higher because you know that that value is there. So that a person can go, this must be something serious, that this is legit. Now, obviously, we can talk about all kinds of different strategies. In fact, I think tomorrow what we're going to talk about, so make sure you come back in tomorrow, make sure you hit subscribe, because tomorrow I want to talk a little bit more about what is going through a person's head when they're buying something. Let's talk about that tomorrow. I think that'll be a good topic. Let me know in the chat if you're excited about that. But we're going to talk about the different things that we can do as entrepreneurs to help a person through a decision to purchase our products. What are the things that they need to see? What's going through their mind? Why would they leave? What are the excuses that they're going to have? I think if we can unlock that together, we're going to have a much better chance of actually selling more of our stuff and helping more people too, ultimately in the end, which is the goal, right? So how about that for a topic tomorrow? I think that'd be a lot of fun. But we need to charge what we're worth. Perceived value is important. The kinds of students that you want to attract. And just for self-worth. You're putting a lot of time and effort into these things that you're creating, and a price point that justifies that should absolutely be key. Now within that, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow, but I think that we need to discuss what's going through a person's head in order to unlock the justification for these prices that we're going to be offering. But again, this is very much learning from Ramit Sethi, a mentor of mine, who says you got to play in the premium sandbox. If you're offering information and there's so many other people out there, you could take one of two approaches. You could take the cheap approach where you can try to get more people into it. In most cases, if you're actually trying to serve people, that's not the best way to serve them, because people are going to get in for cheap. They're going to think it's a push button, easy result, and that's not the case. And so what happens is and plus the math, right? The math. If you, let's say you sell a course for $10, right? How many people would you need to sell that course to get $1,000? You need to sell 100 students into that course. And likely those people aren't going to take action because they haven't invested a lot up front. Versus imagine getting 10 people paying you $100. Now you can actually spend more time with them. 10 versus 100, same amount of money in the end. You're able to help more people, and you're not taking anything away from the people who are getting it for free anyway, right? If you have free content on a blog, podcast, video channel, it's not like you're going, hey guys, now I'm going to pay for this. Now you're going to have to pay for this information, and no longer am I going to be serving you here for free. No, you're going to still continue to do what you were doing. This was the big mindset shift for me. I'm now just offering premium stuff that allows me to share all the best knowledge that I have in a very, very structured process, and have access to me every single week in office hours and each other in a community. That's value. That's worth paying for to get a result, right? And I'm serving an audience there, yet still able to serve people for free as well. But for those who want to go deeper, who want to invest, I have offers for them too. Scooby Leif says, speaking to me. Hasta la vista boss says, Pat, do you think that if people are reaching out and ask me to teach them what I want to do is a good sign that I think about putting a course together? Yeah, it's a good sign for sure. I think this is your first green light. I would go the next step. I wouldn't create a full-on course and go, hey, but you said this is information you wanted to learn about. I would either try to get people to sign up to a webinar where you can teach more of this stuff, or even download a free PDF file that talks more about this information. Because when you collect these email addresses or these registrants, that's another further sign that it's not just talk now. People are indeed investing their either email address and or time in a webinar to show up and learn about this stuff. That's another great sign. And then we can continue to move forward from there, right? So follow the strategies in Smart from Scratch and Will It Fly, and you'll make your way there for sure. Cool. Woo. Hey, y'all. Great chat today. I appreciate you. This is a lot of fun. And tomorrow we're going to talk about unlocking what's going on in a prospect's mind so that we can understand how to better serve them in that decision-making process. Because that's what really we have to do. A little preview for tomorrow. If we don't give a person a reason to buy, they're not going to buy. If we just have it, even a thing that's always for sale, and they can buy it next week, and there's really no draw to buy today, well, guess what? They're not going to buy today. There's nothing helping them make that decision. So we need to, as marketers, become professional decision maker helpers. That's our role. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Hey, y'all, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you. Hook me up with a thumbs up if you liked this, and for the one thumbs down, appreciate you for being here as well and spending time. Still helps with the algorithm, so I appreciate you for that. But I hope you have a better day too. And I'm glad that this spoke to you. And thank you, Pat Flynn, keeping me on target with all my ups and downs, says Martin. And yeah, I mean, this is what it is about, the ups and downs, and how you can stomach that as an entrepreneur. This is what separates those of us who succeed and those of us who fail, is can you manage and stomach the ups and downs, and all while learning and growing as we go. So, hey, y'all, great show today. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to come back tomorrow. By the way, tomorrow, before you go, we start early, right? 7:30 a.m. Pacific, because Wednesdays are my mastermind meeting days where I have a chat with my crew who I've been together with for almost a decade now at 8:30. So I'm starting at 7:30 tomorrow. So just a reminder, Wednesdays we start a half hour earlier. So come in. This is where you go, patflynn.com/theincomestream. I appreciate you so much. You are amazing. I love you. And come back tomorrow. I appreciate you. As always, Team Flynn for the win. Peace out, y'all.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Y'all get some good stuff done, and also say no to things that you know you don't need to do anymore, right? That's the big lesson. Say no. You don't have to say yes to everything. What you say yes to, you're also saying no to, and vice versa. Think on that. Appreciate you. Peace out. See you tomorrow, 7:30 a.m., 10:30 Eastern, and take care. Bruh.